Great. Now, I can click go live now, or it might just happen. But sometimes I've been making Facebook just make it happen. So
I think it says live on my computer already.
Yeah, but it's not exactly true.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's warning you. Yeah. So yeah, so happy about you being here. I just want to see what unfolds, because it feels super important right now.
Yeah.
Okay, it says past. I'm going to press go live now.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, great. Ooh, we got a gallery. We got a speaker view. Let's put it on gallery. Gallery. Hello, welcome to Jen. Are you Jen or Jennifer? Because I saw a Jennifer.
Either one. Jen or Jennifer is fine.
Yeah. Okay, this is Jen Cormier, and it's magic to have you here, because you work with grief, and grief has come up so strongly in the field recently. And I posted something quite quick last week in a live, and I got some feedback that it was more important than I was giving it credence for at the time. And just this grief just keeps showing up in my world everywhere at the moment. And interestingly enough, I had a client session today where it showed up. But anyway, enough about me. So this is Jen, and tell us a little bit about your world and how you are involved in working with grief. You're called a grief guide. Tell us a bit about you.
Yeah. So, I found my way. I just sort of stumbled my way into focusing on grief during COVID, really. I had previously done a training. Let's see, I'll go back a little bit. My background is in somatic healing arts. So, yoga therapies, all different types of massage. I worked with people, lots of women in body pain through Pilates therapeutics for years, 20 years. And how I found myself in my own grieving journey was with the death of my father. So many people know that my dad, Gil, died in 2012. And he went through a cancer journey, and he turned that battle into a healing journey. I helped him. There was a moment that we had together that he just realized, all the research that he was doing about cancer was just getting him like stuck in doom and gloom. And I said, Dad, what if you change your cancer file to a healing file? And he said, I like that, and he just did like a erase, white out, and then he wrote healing file on the top of his manila folder, and he dumped all the cancer research into the recycling. Wow. And just fresh slate, all the cancer, because he was a scientist and a researcher, and he had prostate cancer at age 57 and stage 4 prostate cancer with numbers in the thousands. And usually, cancer is indicated like, over 5 or something. So I immediately moved back to be with my dad. I was living in Oregon. I moved back to Connecticut across the United States. And I ended up being kind of his healing wing woman. And we turned his office into a healing wellness center. And I got to go on a journey with him. And, I thought in my head, right, he's going to bounce back from this cancer. He's super healthy otherwise. We're going to have this great story. We'll write a book together. We'll help families with going through cancer, how they can beat it and, heal and whatever. And it turned out he died. He didn't turn it around. And he ended up having 3 years instead of 3 months. And what happened was he really did heal. You can't always cure, but you can always heal. And that's what one of my mentors told us, Dr. Lewis. He said, you can't always cure, but you can always heal. So with that, my dad really took that to heart. And he said, I'm going to do everything I can to heal. So he read Course in Miracles, he got a rescue dog, he, you know, went to yoga, did all these things. So so for any of you who are listening, who are in, you know, terminal illness, or you have cancer diagnosis, or you have family members, you're supporting them through, you know, anticipatory grief, right? Like the grief that I might lose this person, right? Either I will lose this person, or I might lose this person, or, oh my gosh, I'm guaranteed to lose this person, because we're all dying, truly, right? And then when we realize that, that's a whole our grief journey starts there. You know, it doesn't, we think, oh, grief is that intense sadness when we die. No, we're always grieving. That's like the massive secret that I found out in the last decade, is like, oh my gosh, I'm always grieving or celebrating or resting or grieving or celebrating or resting, or, you know, right? But it's a dance. It's a dance. And it's like the moon cycles, right? There's like, we're filling up with things, and then we've got to let things go, you know?
Yes.
And yeah.
I love
Yeah.
that. And even it's so interesting, because I'm so positive thinking, bliss, joy, happy, happy, happy. And that's my nature. That's just who I am. But there is also a part of me that has been bypassing clearly grief, because even as you speak, my eyes start to well up. Jo Heather Jacobs is here. She just put love that about what you just said. And the weirdest, amazingest thing is that you know, I messaged you last night and said, do you want to come and interview tomorrow? But today I had a client session, and literally they said to me, I've been playing this. I made up this little thing on the piano, and I've been singing this to it. And it's been making me cry. And what they made up was, hang on a minute, I have to find it. Here we go. It was, oh, bear with me. One day I know we're going to have to say goodbye. And there was a mother, it doesn't matter what we say or what we do. And then it was a freestyle. They were singing it, and it's changed. But basically it was like, one day we're going to have to say goodbye. And they were in this state of realizing that the ones they love were going. It was exactly what you just said about the grief is there. It's as soon as you love, it's there, right?
As soon as you love it. And that's the thing, you know, if we live a really safe, not loving very much, not opening our hearts very much, staying super safe, we're not going to grieve a lot. You know, people who are sort of tuned out, right? It's, you know, they're not gonna grieve a lot. But if your heart is open and you love deeply, you're gonna grieve deeply. And life is it's gonna have the full spectrum, right? And we're human, and we want to have the full spectrum, you know, and we want to have elation, and we want to have joy, and we want to have bliss. And that's our nature, right? Our true nature as a yogi. You know, I've done 4 different yoga traditions. I've studied lots of yoga. It's like, well, we have this bliss body, right? And you bring that out in your singing, because I've gotten to witness you singing. And it's like that's what the arts do for us, right? That's what when you hear a song that touches your heart, it opens. And and then we are able to touch into our true nature, right? That is expansive and that is blissful. And that's really who we are. And we're also human, and we have hearts, and we have an emotional body, and we have, you know, and yeah, we can say we're not a body and we're not attached and whatever, but we're human, and we love, and that's going to make it messy, and we're going to lose things that we love, and it's going to be hard. It is guaranteed. And, you know, I think we make it more, we suffer when we don't acknowledge that, when we're like really holding on, or we're like denying, right? And we all go through our moments of denial, and it's okay to go through those moments of, I'm going to just tune out on Netflix for a little bit over here. Like, it's all okay. But we need to, when we do, I'll put it this way. This is what I tell my clients, you know, we have the opportunity, right, for choice. And one thing that's the most powerful thing we can choose is to decide, I'm going to go on a healing journey, right? Whether that healing journey is with cancer, or that healing journey is my father just died and I'm a liquid lead puddle on the couch and I can't get myself up.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go on a journey with grief, and I'm going to say, grief, okay, you're my teacher. What do you have to teach me? And I'm going to show up every day with my grief, which is what I did the year after my dad died. I had a mentor hold space for me for a year and said, you're going to walk through every season, every cycle, every birthday, every holiday, everything. And you're going to let grief teach you.
Wow, that's amazing. All right, let's just pause. There's so much here, right? So Joe's here and she was agreeing with you, and but she said songs can also inspire tears too. So yeah, the arts can also inspire not just bliss, but the grief. Which
All
is
of it.
my two clients recently have both done. They've just done the other one was like, I'm grieving a life that I have to get it. I have to have it verbatim. It's just too good. Bear with me. It's got to be. I grieve for a life that I've never lived. Is it more painful to love than to not love? And it's like, oh, to actually admit that. Well, for me, I think with me being completely single, and protecting myself, I can, even though there's reasons I'm single, like I'm really impassioned about my work, blah blah blah, the fact is that, is it more painful to love than to not love? And this grief journey and everything, I can really see the protection mechanism that might be at play here to stop me feeling so deeply that I'm going to hurt so deeply. I can admit here and now that I'm noticing myself reacting to bruising, like, so that was that. And
Yeah.
songs can inspire tears too from Joe, and we could go into that whole thing, and I'd love to share what my clients have been working through, and it's just beautiful. But then something else just said, the last thing about, oh my God, you got someone hold your hand through a whole year of having, after your dad had passed. That's amazing. Is that what you do, that kind of thing?
And that's what I do now. And that's what I do. So I have a year-long program that people walk through every season, every cycle, right? They can walk all the way through and have that consistent support through a year. And that year might not start right when someone died, right? It might be years ago. And we just kind of, and then something happens and we go, okay, I'm ready to be with this now. So that year can be any moment, right? It doesn't need to start, a week after a death, right? Or
does it sometimes, Joe thinks that's incredible too. Does it sometimes even start before they pass as well? Because the grieving happens, like someone's terminally ill, sometimes they die and you're like, oh my God, I'm so happy that they finally went. So you've already started grieving. Do you do that as well?
Yeah. And, people, I had a client, and she's been on my podcast. Her name is Meg. So I know she's happy for me to share her story publicly. But she's shared that she had a whole journey with her husband with Parkinson's and then with dementia, and years and years and years, like we're decades, right? It's like 20 years of Parkinson's and 10 years with dementia. And she was full-time caregiver. So she had done lots of grief, sort of that, right? As he's fading and losing capacity and dying. But then it was like me, I thought, oh, I've done so much grieving my dad, I've cried so much, he got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer 3 years ago. I was, and then when he died, it was just like, and now what? And now my parent, who I had my whole life, is gone, so it was still like, I thought I had done a lot of grief, and I had not, or I had, but so it's just a different journey for everybody. So I like to just validate every person to say, listen, it's going to be absolutely different for every person. It's a unique journey. It's just like our fingerprint. It's like a different fingerprint for each person on the planet. Like a snowflake, right? It's going to be totally different. And each relationship, each type of grief is going to be different. So I've had some people say, oh my gosh, the death of my pet was even worse than I lost this person or that person. The death of my parents sold my family home, and that was a bigger grief than all these other things. So
do you deal with that kind of thing as well? Because because grief of a heartbreak or grief of a sold your family home or whatever, you deal with that as well. You can walk with grief through grief.
Yeah, because really, it's when we have a loss, whatever it is, right? We have a death, we have I have, and also, so here's what I'll say. Often we get really knocked down when it's a death of someone that we really love, a partner, a parent, a child. We're like, we get thrown over. And then when we start moving through that sort of fresh first season of really challenging pain, we get through that. And then it's like, oh, what's under that is now now I'm also retired, or, I came because my sister died of cancer. But then now I've done a lot of grieving of my sister. Now I'm realizing when I was 12, my dad died, and, or my mom died, or my sibling died. And oh, now I'm dealing with that because now I have the space, my psyche, all of the pieces of me know I'm available now. Like myself is available for those little pieces that were hurt in different times of my life. And they can come forward and know that it's safe now to express what wasn't safe before. Right. So I feel like there is, when we're talking about this full range of expression, and I love, oh my gosh, that, what you just shared that your client wrote, I grieve for a life that I never lived. That's for me right now. That is so much of the grief that I'm grieving now. It's like, what's holding me up? What's my anxiety all about? What's my overwhelm all about? Oh, it's because there's so many things that I love about my life. Oh, I have my child and my apartment and my work. Oh, all these things are great. And yeah, I want to be positive. I want to be, enjoy and ease. And underneath that, it's, oh, this relationship never worked out. I never got married. This isn't the way. This, will I ever have a partner? Those things are underneath. It's like, oh, I'm grieving the life I didn't live. And that's a lot of when there's a death or something, it's like, I'm grieving this person, I'm grieving our past, but now I'm also grieving the dream that will never be.
Yes.
So that's huge. We have this idea of our lives. And then when that can't be the way we thought it was going to be, like that's a journey to so it's really a journey of softening, of being more gentle with ourselves. And then that gentleness, we get to, when we relearn, going from being really harsh with ourselves to being gentle with ourselves, we learn that on the grief journey. If we choose to go on it as a healing journey, right? Then it ripples out. It changes the rest of our life. So I have clients calling me like, oh my gosh, I'm doing this, the heart mudra. I'm doing all this this is really a journey about self-love. Oh,
and guess what? Just as you said that, Joe was texting, commenting. And as you said the word self-love, her comment came in, it actually feels so natural to let the waves and chapters come in this way. It's self-love. And she just put that in just as you said it. That's, Joe, we're on it. We're together. That's brilliant. The softening.
Yeah. So I think the work is, it's heart work. It's about our soul. It's about our heart. It's about tending to our heart. And it's about tending to like the sort of orphan energy in the heart. It's like that smaller, frailer self that needs holding,
I hear you. Yeah, that sounds so beautiful. I mean, every time you say that, I should write notes because I've lost the thread, because then you move to that one. I'm like, oh, I can respond. And there's just so many things. I'm going to get my fingers out this time, like to write some notes, because it's like, oh, there's just so much there. My mum passed into the non-physical, and I'm like pretty chilled about death. And in that, I know it's there every day, and any one of us can die any day. And I've always thought before she passed, oh, I'm chilled about death, right? And she passed, and I had grief, and it shrunk my body, and stuff. There was all sorts of stuff. There was a period after the funeral where I'd just find something, climb underneath it, and cry my eyes out. And that went on for some time. I had a horrible experience with a friend who said, right, you must stop now, which was horrible. But it was so interesting because it was physical, and it could, and even still, I was still happy she wasn't alive anymore, and I still feel I have a chilled relationship with death. I have quite a few people passing with me, and I'm just okay with that. I think for myself, I probably only grieve like somebody who's really, really close, like my kids, like, and maybe one or two other people, but I'm so used to being alone. But then one wonders, well, I've started to wonder how much I'm making myself be alone so that I don't have to grieve, you know, like my friends, my clients thing about, yeah, about tomorrow, about the, you know, one day I know we're going to have to say goodbye, like maybe just don't say hello is a technique. But the interesting thing is, like, yeah, just witnessing everybody's experience is so different and unique. And I remember people saying to me, you don't know what it feels like, you won't know what it feels like. And I was like, yeah, but I'm sure I do. And then my mum passed and I was like, I don't know what it feels like, and I won't know what it was. And because it's so specific to each one of us, there's me who's like, oh, you know, everyone dies, it's part of life. I'm like still getting bodily and emotional grief. I can only, you know, I see somebody and they're managing their grief, and it's taken over their whole life for like years, and like it's so variable, and every different form that it takes is, it's just amazing to witness the uniqueness of it, the spectrum of it.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, well, one thing I just want to say is, yeah, there needs to be a whole, you know, how to be human. I want to write the handbook, right? Of like
Good book
when we're
title.
in relationship, yeah, with folks, you know, the friend that said, you just got to stop, right? And that friend was in their way trying to be helpful because seeing you in pain, and yeah, but we can't just stop. We have to move through it. We have to cry through it. We have to get under the thing and bawl our eyes out like you did, right? Through it. And I'm wondering for you, because yeah, you didn't know how it was going to be until it happened, right? Losing your mom. And what I'm curious about, my experience, and this is a generalization, but I think it's true. Well, no, I think it's a universal law that those of us who have experience in moving energy, whether that's moving the body through movement practice, spiritual practice, massages,
Mm-hmm.
moving energy through singing,
Mm-hmm.
dancing, expressing,
Mm-hmm.
that becomes essential in moving through the grieving process. So I would imagine, but I don't know, this is my question to you. How did your artistic, expressive self come in after the death of your mom? And did it come in, and how did it come in? And was that helpful to you at all?
Oh my God, yeah. So I wrote a really beautiful song, actually. But I was, at one point, I just moved into a room that didn't have friends share, you know, like, but it didn't have a window. And I just moved there just before she passed. And my record collection was so important. Like my record collection was just so important. Can't remember what I played or anything like that, but I just remember how it was a healing tool. Yeah. I wrote a song called Nothing. It's so beautiful. I wish I could just pick up my guitar and play it for you, but I don't think it's properly in tune. I don't know if I can remember. But anyway, I wrote a song called Nothing, and it's like, I feel nothing. Oh my gosh, I can't remember. Nothing. But it was about this feeling of just nothingness. Yeah, so I did write a song, and it was beautiful. But yeah, what's interesting with the two clients that have recently expressed grief in their vocal pieces, I feel it in my body. Like I feel it. It's so strong here. And that's just a really interesting thing for me. It's like tight and but it's kind of delicious as well. And that's what today's client, they said, what did they say? They said, so they were like, one day, I know we're gonna have to say goodbye. And then they said it offers us a choice of what we're going to do with that feeling. And they said, enjoy the times we have. But then they also said that feeling is life itself, which is kind of how you described it as well, the aliveness. Like for me to feel this grief, just while witnessing and holding space for their thing in my body, it's like I'm so alive right now. I'm full alive, not just the joy, but that is so visceral, the feeling of grief in your body.
Yeah. And I just had a teacher of mine, a yoga teacher, Sarah Avant Stover, who I've practiced with, for decades. She said something about wholeness is not the same as happiness. That there's like happiness, that's particular, but then there's wholeness. And I think what we're speaking about is wholeness. We're speaking about life itself, and life itself is everythingness, right? It is wholeness. And it's like about not shutting anything out. It's about allowing all of it. And I think that's what you're talking about, that visceral, that power, that came through in that song. It's life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And what's been so interesting working with my clients, so I've been creating mantras with people, and the mantras are often coming from a place of pain. I find that works the best. But I did one the other day. The woman was like, I'm just so happy. So I was like, make a mantra about how happy you are so you can keep it and remind you. But mostly I find going into the pain point, and then in there finding the jewel that you need to, like if if there's a pain, and then you find the jewel, which is either something to soothe you. So it could be, I'm getting people to come up with soothing words, or motivate, inspire, and encourage you. And so that's mostly what I've been doing with the mantras. But what happened and unfolded after this day of grief that I had, where I listened to podcasts and everything just kept pointing to grief. And the client session I had the next day, and they were speaking into their grief, and then it just felt like the right thing to do for them to make a mantra of their grief. Because the thing about mantra, like the word mantra, is like training the mind, sort of it. That's kind of what it means, right? But also in the podcast I'd listened to, the guy was, I have to say, Justin Michael Williams, because that's how he says his name. And he was saying about how sad music was really necessary for sad feelings to be felt, and you couldn't there was some science or something he'd found out about happy music just really didn't help when you were feeling sad. It was actually detrimental. And so that's where with my client we were like, well, let's not create a mantra to like move through. The mantra is to move through the feeling, but you need to move through it by, because they were saying about playing sad songs on repeat, and how that helped, which I guess when we go to my record collection, that's probably what I was doing. And so that's where we came up with this. They came up with the line, but that's how it worked. We put some, like I put some music behind it, and they spoke it about the is it better to love than to not love, and the grief for the life, that piece. And the thing about it, if it plays over and over again, you could just bawl your eyes out for a while to it. It's like, this is a mantra, it's a healing thing. It's just as much as a soothing or an inspiring thing to help you move through the feeling to get to the jewel that's on the other side. Like it just feels so big.
Yeah, I think it's really key. And actually so every month in my year-long program, the third or fourth Sunday of the month there's a dream dancing ceremony, which is a creative ceremony. And what we do is we source music from everyone in the group. We pull music together and create a playlist to move to dance to. And that there's something alchemical, there's something magic about feeling what are those songs. And sometimes in an hour and 15-minute playlist, there'll be a song that's just brings you down to your knees. There'll be another song that makes me laugh. There'll be a song that one playlist I put my dad used to, I don't know if you, way back, what was it, 1990s, there was Right Said Fred, the song I'm Too Sexy for My Shirt.
Yeah.
My dad used to put on, because my mom and I would always make fun of his clothing, because he'd always wear something mixed matched, and like, I think he was colorblind. So he would put on a shirt and like walk through the living room like, I'm too sexy for my shirt. Oh my God, Dad. But that song came, like, just popped into my head. There's something magical about songs that just come, whether it's, I have a client right now who has a huge record collection, and just every week you see a post, she's posting more and more songs, records, that she found, right? Her mother's record collection. So we have, like, there's something magical about music. And I think if whoever's listening to this, they know that because they know you, right? But I think the message that's coming through that needs to be said is pay attention to those songs that you hear in your head, when you're waking. Like for me, I'll remember, I'm a big dream journaler. I love to record my dreams, and I go through phases where I really work with them, poetry and playlists, and other phases I don't. But I also get waking songs. So I don't know, I guess if you're watching this in the group and you want to make a comment, let us know. Say like, yes, I have waking songs. I'm just curious how many people in here every once, and maybe you do it every morning, but I'll go through phases where every morning there'll be a different song in my head when I'm waking up.
Yeah,
I'll write that song down.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
The lyric that's coming to me. So this morning, for example, or it'll come a little later, like I'll be making an offering. I was outside, with my feet on the earth, and I had just made like an offering, and I heard the song. It was originally a Sting song, and then it was in the Sing soundtrack. The oh gosh, what's it called? You're stuck in a moment and you can't get out of it.
Oh, I don't know, but I love the movie Sing, and there was
I'm not going to try and sing it, but basically the lyrics that I wrote down, that I was like, that I was stuck.
I see. Yeah.
You're stuck in a moment and you can't get out of it. And the original, so I listened to the Sing soundtrack, and then I listened to the original. Let me see if I can find where I just wrote this down. Yeah, and then the very end, so they changed it in the soundtrack, but the original song by Sting, it ends with, so I just kept hearing that, and I'm like, yeah, I feel stuck in a moment. I feel stuck right now. I feel like, am I going to keep doing the work I'm doing? And I feel stuck in this, place. And I'm like, how is that song helpful? Right. Because it was kind of, you're stuck in a moment, So I listened to the original version all the way to the end. And the last lines of the song are, and if your way should falter, allow this story. Now I can't read my writing. Also, this something pass. It's just a moment. This time will pass. And that's the last line of that song. So I was like, oh, thank you. I needed that message. So I feel like messages come to us that we need from our soul, from the collective consciousness, from the divine, whatever the magical feel, they come through song lyrics, right? They come through. So pay attention to, if you're waking up and you're having one of those, like, if you're in a heavy space, a dark space, you're stuck, something, see what song pops into your head, and then go listen to it, and then look at all the lyrics and see if there's a message in there for you.
Yeah, that's great. I do sometimes that, but I love the way that you've actually written it down. Listen, Jo's in the room still with us, and she's made a few comments, but some of them, she was talking about an authentic meeting of a feeling. I don't know where that was in the constant, and then how to meet yourself in that self-feeling, the self-compassion. And she's loving what we're saying. She's also saying she's a musician. We've made a song together. Sometimes at odd times in the day, she has the song come through that she was saying. I do it as well. And funny enough, but I do. Recently I played them, but I haven't stopped to do what you've just suggested. So that's great. And sometimes it's obvious because it's there in the title. It's like, I need something, and it's like, okay, well, obviously I need something. But I love what you said about going all the way through the lyrics and seeing where the message is in the song that's come to me, and it makes me even more excited to write with my clients, get them writing, because one of the things I've noticed about being an artist, like my mantra that I've been listening to over and over again is trusting. And I've been feeling overwhelmed for a while now. So I've been listening to the mantra I made called Trusting, and it says, lying back in the feather bed of grace. No, it says, I am trusting. And then it goes, lying back in the feather bed of grace. Everything is falling into place. Everything is possible. Everything is possible. But I sing possible with my fake American accent. Everything is possible. And I'm listening to it and I'm like getting the words that mean the most to me at this moment is that I'm trusting and everything is falling into place, right? So I've been listening to it on repeat for hours and hours and hours to help me to go, it's okay, it's all going to fall into place, right? And it's working. But then I was hearing myself saying everything is possible, and I'm like, Alison, it sounds like possible in English. And first of all, I was like, that's really annoying because it, and then I'm like, well, actually, I can't remember the second thing, but the third one was, oh, I could put everything is possible. I could just go pass. I'm not going to deal with that right now. And suddenly it meant something
possible.
Yeah, like so and so, but that's what I love about art, like creating art. You think when you're making it that it has a certain meaning, and it does when you're making it, but then when you come back to it after some time, it's going to say something completely different. It's teaching you, which is why I love getting people to express their art in any form, because when you come back and see it, when you step back or it comes back, or somebody else, I wrote my song Dreams Come True was never about a romantic relationship, and someone said, can you sing it at the wedding? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a good wedding song. I did not know that, but you know, that's the great thing about art. It can be interpreted from many angles, but it also is it's like your spirit, like it's like the word inspiration comes from spirit, like it comes, your spirit embodies itself in this art form, and then you get to witness like what your spirit was saying. And that's why the freeing your voice is so important to me as well, because when it comes out of you, you don't always have control. It's like we are channeling a lot of times, and so you don't necessarily have control, but then if you can store it, record it, listen back to it, or have it reflected, you can start to see what. So I love what you just said there, because you just deepened the whole song thing and what I'm doing with my clients, and it's just
I love it. I love it. And you know what, where I go with that too, I love that you're, you know, it's so important to free the voice. And that is important. You know, that's something that I teach with my grief work, right? Is that if we're closing down, we really have to allow sound. That's like one of the steps in how to walk through grief is we have to make sound, whether it's crying, wailing underneath the furniture, you know, let sound out, because that's the way that energy moves, whether that's talking, wailing, singing, humming, all of it. So sound. And then, you know, for me, it's also freeing the body. You know, that's what I did when my dad died. At first, you know, I was a performing artist, but I just was not dancing right away, but I could walk. The rescue dog got me out. I was walking circles. I could walk in circles in the woods. Eventually I started dancing again, and it was like freeing my body was so important. So it's like, can we free our voice and can we free our body? Absolutely. And those are two major things that we can do to co-collaborate with our healing, with the healing that is happening, you know, so that we can be part of that healing process.
Oh God, you know what? I'm so tingly. I could sit and talk to you for ages. Oh look, Joe's look, I went through a massive dark night of the soul last year and sang every day to help release the anxiety and tensions and touch the deeper feelings. Absolutely. And you know, the movement, and yeah, they're super important. So I want to know a little bit more. I could talk to you for ages. I know I could. And also I'm thinking of creating a group program myself, because freeing a voice, also we do sounds. And I now, you know, I want to include grief, all the things that we can't do on our own, but also freeing the voice brings community, because we realize, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one going through this. And so you also, it was difficult to move my body, but singing came easy. Yeah, I see that, Joe. And so I'm starting to think, wow, well, I'd like to do some regular group practice with everybody with the freeing voice. Like my online workshops are so beautiful because we're together, or my real life workshops, because that togetherness just shows us what we all have in common. And so I'm thinking, right, next year I'm going to do the whole year, and I'm going to go through different stages of free your voice in group, and one of them is going to be grief. And I'm like, I want you to come and do a bit module with for me. But can you talk about yours? Because first of all, it sounded like you work with private clients, and then it sounded like you have a group. Can you tell us about what you actually do?
Yeah, so I have a group of clients that move through an entire year. I have a group that's completing this month. In September is their final year, and I just really honor sort of, we've got, moon cycle after moon cycle, season after season. So, in the process, there are 4 seasonal retreats and monthly ceremonies, right? And then we do some group work and private work as well within that year-long program. So it's pretty, there's lots of layers of support in that year-long program. And I think that what people receive when they step in, when they find a community container that resonates with them to do their healing work, whatever that is. If you're moving through grief and you find my year-long heal immersion program or some other program, but if you step into a container that creates a space for you to really be seen and heard and understood, there's so much healing that happens, right? Because then you are receiving compassion from other people, and then you start learning, oh, that's how I can be soft with myself. That's how I can be compassionate with myself. We start relearning, and that takes time. It's not a weekend workshop. You don't just hop into something and hop out and go, oh, now I'm kind to myself and all is well, right? I mean, all is always well, right? But it takes just over and over, week by week, month by month, seeing ourselves from a new perspective with a new sense of softness. So that's really valuable to me, that we're like that we're grounding ourselves, we're getting support from, and that's the other thing we practice is, what are all the ways that we had stopped receiving support? When someone's like, can I help you? No, I got it. I mean, growing up, it was like, my dad came from a Catholic family, and, with money and everything was like, no. No. So I think when we're going through an especially hard time after a major loss, we're going through grief, people want to help. Sometimes they don't know how, sometimes they make offers, but how are we open to receiving support? And sometimes that's from other humans. Sometimes that's from pets. Sometimes that's from the earth underneath us. So it's a whole layer of earth practices. How can we ground? How can we start back in sacred reciprocity with the earth, connect with our nature parents? There's a whole, like, do daily rituals to connect, to get support underneath. How do we get support from above? We have all different types of, backgrounds and spiritual beliefs, but they're all different ways that we can get support from behind, from our ancestors, from us, from below us. So it's like, how can we receive layers of support in a new way? So that's really some of the work that we do.
Okay, so I have a question. Joe's given you some prayer hands. What about, isn't it, I'm just imagining this group. I've got 2 questions and I want to put them in because we're getting, it's nearly an hour already and we only got slow for a question. So the 2 questions, is it only for Americans? Because you do 4 monthly retreats, are they in real life? And the other is, or people who can afford to fly over to America for each retreat. And the other question is there ever a times when somebody grief is so big it takes over everybody else's and it triggers everybody and all of that, and
yeah, so those are 2 great questions. The number one question is, the retreats are virtual. So I do have clients, I do have a client in the UK right now, and she's participates and comes, and sometimes she's up late at night doing things, but we've got time zone friendly time, so we go back and forth. So yes, all over the world, virtual, so you don't have to fly to the US 4 times a year. First answer. PS to that, I'm leading my first international retreat, which actually we can share that with people, because that's something that I have spaces in. I'm leading a retreat to Teotihuacan, Mexico in November. And it's the 11th anniversary of my dad's death, actually. And I went there with him the last year he was alive for his spiritual journey. So anyway, I do have, so I have retreats in person, but you don't have to do that. Okay. The second question that you asked, so it's about how you hold the space, right? And it's about learning. So it's a couple things. It's about learning how not to take on, because this is something that we haven't learned sometimes. Oh, someone's got anger or deep sadness or something going on. I'm going to take that on and put that inside my body or on my shoulders. So how can we learn to be? I mean, that's something that we do in a space where we're just witnessing. And that's different energy, witness energy, than, oh, I'm going to take that and let that penetrate me. Right. So that's part of that. The other piece is, some of that is about space holding, right? Do you just let one person, go off forever? So for example, when I hold my monthly ceremonies, we'll just set an intention and maybe do a 1-word share at the beginning, right? Then we dance to music for 75 minutes and then share. So sometimes if we shared at the beginning, it would be like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Everything is terrible. I'm in this dark night of the soul, right? And then, but if we just, we're present, my intention is clearing because I'm in the hardest moment. I don't have to go and tell my sad story for 20 minutes. I'm going to sing and dance and wail and roll around on the ground, and we'll all go through this at the same time. And then at the end, I can come back together and go, wow.
Yeah. Okay.
This is where I am now. So I think that can happen. And that's, a lot of people come to me and say, therapy's not working for me very well. I'm in a bereavement group. It's not working for me very well because this bereavement group, I'm sitting there for 2 hours and everyone's just telling their darkest stories and it's not very helpful to me. Right. And sometimes we do need to have our story told and we do need to tell it and we do need to be heard. So there's a balance. Yes.
This sounds so good what you're doing.
But we also need to hum and we need to dance and we need to have music and we need to, So I think that the answer to that is there needs to be a balance. Yeah.
You know what? I love this when I just think, wow, I could do this. I mean, whatever I'm grieving, I don't even know, but there's enough there for sure. Otherwise I wouldn't get that feeling in my body. I can see how this could be like medicine for everyone.
It is medicine for everyone. And that's what my clients, so I just recorded a podcast with some of my old clients and they're like, this is my work now. Like, I enjoy almost, right? Just grieving. It's just part of my process, and when we can grieve and let go, then we have more capacity to celebrate. And that's a big part of my grief work is we celebrate. I send all my clients bells and we ring them for each other. So we're like, when we do the sharing, it's like, oh my gosh, I just realized that, for all this time it was like this, but now I'm finally claiming that. Ding, 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 ding. We like whip out our bells and ring because we have to celebrate. So it's not all dark and sad. The grief journey has lots of potential for creativity, lots of potential for lightness, because that's where we're going. Right. We're letting go of the extra layers, the static, the heaviness, so that we can feel more peace and we can feel free.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Yes, sounds fab. Joe says to move for energy like that. So good. Lush. Yeah, interestingly, my client today, they a bit like the songs, you can have it with books as well, can't you? And I asked them a question and then they walked and just found the exact book that was staring them in the face that they were looking for. And their interest is Shambhala. And there's this the sacred warrior who has their heart so that, I didn't quite write down what it said in the book, but it was about, being with fear so much that you're fearless sort of thing, but having your heart so open, like your heart so full and open that it feels everything. It feels all the pain, but it also makes you super resilient at the same time. Like it was something around that. And yeah, your heart can be two things, really beautifully in pain and beautifully joyful. It's like how you started the conversation. Obviously, Martin Pritchard's Grief and Praise. So let's see if Jo's got a question. She's been here commenting all the way through. Is that okay?
Jo, absolutely. And Jo, I just feel you in this dark night of the soul moment last year. I'm just really, really feeling you, and so glad that you've just been in that practice of vocalizing and singing every day, and that's works for you. I think that that's important. For some of us it's writing, some of us it's dancing, some of us it's singing. We all have poetry. Like we all have a different thing that really is our practice that's right up front. Whatever that is, roll with it. I love that you did that. Yeah. And if you have any questions or anything you want to say or ask, we're here.
Thank you. We'll just see if any question appears up. And in the meantime, we can also talk about, so if someone wants to find out, obviously in this group where we are right now, and for your True Voice Facebook group, we can, you're actually in the group, so people can message and comment and tag you and stuff and get and find you. But actually, for wherever else I might post this, it's good if we also share verbally what your how to contact you.
Yeah, so you can find me a few ways. So it's walk through grief with grace. Walk through grief with grace at Gmail is my email. There's a Walk Through Grief with Grace is the podcast name. Walk Through Grief with Grace is my website. And I also have a private group that's just called Grief and Grace. Maybe I should change it to Walk Through Grief with Grace, but that's just Grief and Grace. And I'd be happy to, to have a chat with anyone, here in this community that's moving through any particular flavor of challenge, of grief, and just sit with you. Maybe I can point you in a direction of something that might be helpful, or I can offer you one step or one practice, something that you can do. I'd be happy to be in service, Alison, to your people.
That's so beautiful. So you've coined Walk Through Grief with Grace, and that's what I did, because I'm menopausal at the moment, so my brain sometimes was like, what's her name, but I remembered Grief with Grace or something when I put it in my, when I was trying to find your podcast. The words Grief with Grace had stuck in my head long enough, because I didn't have you, because I know we call you Rev Jen sometimes, and we wasn't sure. So, but I found you because of those words when I went onto Spotify, and I was able to share you. And so I love how you've claimed and named that name. Jo says, I don't have a specific question, but I'd love to work with you at some point. I've blocked a lot of grief around my dad and his passing. Yeah. And so in terms of that, you only have your doors open once a year for clients.
Yeah, I've played with that, but there's a door open in October to join the year-long immersion program. So that's a possibility, Jo. We could talk about that, and I'd be happy to just chat with you if there's some other way I could support you.
And she also says, I'm blocked a lot about grief about my dad and his passing because our relationship was tricky.
Yeah. And I thank you for sharing that, because that is my dad and I, we weren't the closest. I mean, his terminal illness helped, and I got the opportunity to do a little bit of healing and get closer to him at the end of his life. That's not the case for everybody. And so many folks that I work with, they had tumultuous, complex relationships with a parent or whoever, and then they're not physically here anymore. It's like, okay, now I can't heal that, and now that the dream of that parent I never had also is gone, right? If my relationship with my dad or my mom was not ideal. So I've had clients really work through that. It's like there's the grief of the death of the person, and then it's like, now I'm grieving my childhood because I never got the this or the that with this parent, and then I never, so it's like, oh, there's like those waves of that. So thanks for pointing that out, because we don't all have this sunny, rosy, oh, me and my dad were, everything was perfect. And then, I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for hanging out with us, Joe, this whole time. It was really lovely to have you, and be happy to connect with you for sure.
Yeah, this is really good. So yeah, I can imagine that just finding you on Facebook, that's Jennifer Cormier, is the way to do that, right?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is to go to the Grief and Grace group and join there.
Yeah, because then you'll be in your group. If someone joins the group, they'll actually have like input. There's like this group, I put input in there, and there's some stimulus and free stuff basically and community
free trainings and tips and the community, and absolutely.
Yeah, Joe says it's been lovely and she looks forward to that.
All right, fantastic, Joe.
Thank you so much, Jen. I could just talk to you for ages. I'm so passionate about this work. I'm also passionate about creating legacy, because we could only know that we were going to die. If we knew that we were going to die, then what impact we're going to leave, what we're going to leave behind, especially these works of art that speak for eons afterwards in totally different ways. She asked me to pop a link in here. So what is it? It's your Facebook group. Is it going to be like facebook.com?
I can, let's see, I can probably pop that in. The name of this group is,
you put it in the chat on Zoom. I'll put it in the
when I do
on Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'll put it in the chat in Zoom, and then you can copy it and put. Look at this. Look how talented we are.
21st century.
So I'm going to edit, copy, and then paste. My podcast producer's like, oh my gosh, Jen, I need to teach you all the shortcuts. I'm always like,
your podcast who?
Caitlin, who produces my podcast.
Oh, you've got a producer. Oh, that's so nice. I'd love to have a producer of a podcast. Okay, here we go. Right, I've got it. So I'm going to copy it and put it in the chat. But I'm also, it's just got numbers. So yeah. Cool, brilliant. But I bet there it is. I can see it.
Ta-da!
Yeah,
it works.
Yeah. Okay, great work. We did good. And thank you so much for guesting today. I love what you have shared. And in my vortex, I now have a year of grief work. I mean, it's going to be so good. And relationship. And for me right now, I'm having a relationship with grief is coming to my life via these conversations and my clients, and I'm just holding and feeling and allowing myself to be whole. Like you said, there's all of the feelings, not just the joy and the bliss, but the grief. And it's so tasty, it's so alive, isn't it? And it's like, whoa. And like and to have, and not to dampen and quell and all of that's possibly been my journey of life, probably.
You know what it just makes me think of right now as we're talking, that's why I love these conversations, like things we would have never thought of, right? Just sitting down, it's like the standard American diet, right, of like processed flour and sugar, right, versus like the whole, all the tastes, right, like sweet and sour, and it's just like we want to get all the tastes in. We want to get all the nutrients in. We want to get, the full spectrum in, and not just, do fast food, sugar and flour all the time. Right. Like, so, I love that this is coming to you. I feel like, we have souls, and like our businesses have souls. Our grief journey, it has its own soul, right? There's like, and if we feel in at the soul level, I feel like that's really what grief work is. It's like soul work. And it brings us to what's next, to creativity, to creation, truly. So.
Thank you. I really appreciate you. It's been a pleasure to have Jennifer Cormier here in the room for your true voice. Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alison.
Yeah. Thank you, Joe, for joining us. Let's just check she didn't say anything else before I complete link circle. I just joined. There we go. All right, sister. Over and out. Yeah.
Over and out. It's really beautiful. I really appreciate you. This was a really special time.